remember the exact moment my world split into before and after. It was a Thursday evening in Seoul, rain hammering against the windows of his penthouse like bullets against bulletproof glass. Jin-woo stood at those massive windows, his silhouette dark against the city lights, and I knew something had changed. His shoulders carried a weight I hadn't seen before, even after the bloodiest nights of his empire's wars. "You have to leave," he said without turning around. His voice was flat, emotionless, the same tone he used when ordering executions. Tonight. I was 23 years old, carrying a secret I'd only discovered that morning, and the man I loved was erasing me from his life like I was a mistake in a ledger. "Jin-woo, I need to tell you something." "There's nothing to say." He finally turned, and his eyes were empty. Cold. The warmth I'd fallen in love with had been replaced by the ruthless boss everyone else saw. This was temporary. "You knew that." "I didn't know that. I thought what we had was real. I thought the way he held me after nightmares, the way he laughed at my terrible Korean pronunciation, the way he traced my skin like he was memorizing a map to home, I thought all of that meant something. But standing in that penthouse with rain crying against the glass and my hand unconsciously protective over my still flat stomach, I realized I'd been living in a beautiful lie. "Is there someone else?" My voice cracked despite my determination to stay strong. His jaw tightened. "There are threats. Against anyone close to me. You're not safe here. Then protect me." "I can't." Two words that shattered everything. "My enemies would use you to destroy me. And they would succeed." I should have told him then. About the positive test hidden in my purse, about the tiny life we'd created together. But his face was carved from stone, his decision clearly final. And some part of me, the part that had grown up fighting for every scrap of respect and safety, refused to trap him with a pregnancy or beg for a place in a world that was already rejecting me. So I left. That night, with one suitcase and a breaking heart, I walked out of Jin-woo's life and into an uncertain future alone. 7 years vanished like smoke, each one harder than the last. I built a life in London, small, quiet, safe. A world away from Seoul's dangerous glamour and the Mafia empire I'd briefly touched. I worked 2 jobs for the first 3 years, then finally clawed my way into a decent position at a non-profit. I lived in a modest flat that leaked when it rained and heated unevenly in winter, but it was mine. Ours. Because I wasn't alone anymore. I had Mira. My daughter was everything Jin-woo would never know, fierce, curious, brilliant. She had his eyes, that distinctive shape and intensity that sometimes stopped my heart when she looked at me with too much understanding for a 7-year-old. She had my complexion, my hair, my stubborn chin. She was a perfect blend of 2 worlds that had collided and separated, leaving her as the only evidence we'd ever existed together. "Mama, why don't I have a daddy?" she asked once when she was 5, watching other children at the park with their fathers. I pulled her close, breathing in the sweet scent of her hair. "You do have a daddy, baby. He lives very far away, and he doesn't know about you." "Why doesn't he know?" "How do you explain adult complications to a child? How do you say that fear and violence and impossible choices kept her father ignorant of her existence? Sometimes grown-ups make decisions they think are right, even when they hurt. I thought it was right to keep you safe by keeping you secret." She processed this with the serious expression she wore when thinking deeply. "But I'm safe. And I'm here. So maybe now the decision can be different." Children see the world with such clarity sometimes. But I'd built our life on the foundation of Jin-woo's absence. Telling him now, after 7 years, felt like detonating a bomb under everything we'd created. So I held her tighter and made promises I wasn't sure I could keep about someday and maybe and we'll see. The universe has a dark sense of humor. Just when you think you've escaped your past, it finds you in the most unexpected ways. I'd taken Mira to the British Museum on a rainy Saturday, her favorite place, full of ancient stories and treasures from around the world. She was studying a Korean artifact, her small face pressed close to the glass as she tried to read the placard, when I felt it. That primitive awareness that crawls up your spine when predatory eyes are watching. I turned slowly and saw him. Jin-woo stood 3 display cases away, surrounded by men in expensive suits that didn't quite hide the dangerous efficiency in their movements. His security. He looked older, not weathered, but refined, like expensive whiskey aged to perfection. Sharp suit, perfectly styled hair, that same commanding presence that could silence a room. He was in London on business, clearly, far from his soul empire but no less powerful. And he was staring directly at Mira. My heart stopped. Actually stopped. Because I watched recognition flicker across his face, confused at first, then sharpening into something like shock. He took a step forward, his eyes never leaving my daughter, and I saw him cataloging features. The eye shape. The way she tilted her head when concentrating. Small genetic echoes that were apparently louder than I'd hoped. What would you do in that moment? Would you grab your child and run? Stand your ground? Pretend not to notice? I found myself frozen, watching my past and present collide in a public museum on a random Saturday that had just become the second most important day of my life. Jin-woo moved toward us with that predator's grace that had never left him, his security parting crowds without seeming to touch anyone. Mira finally looked up from the artifact, following my frozen gaze, and her eyes landed on the man approaching us. Mama. She moved closer to me instinctively, sensing the tension radiating from my body. Who is that man? Just, someone I used to know, baby. He looks scary. She whispered it, her small hand gripping my coat. He did look scary. Not because of his expression, which was carefully neutral, but because of the intensity pouring off him in waves. This was a man who'd spent 7 years ruling an empire with an iron fist, making life and death decisions before breakfast. Standing 3 feet away from a child who was clearly, undeniably his. If you've ever wondered what your life would look like if one moment could rewrite everything, drop a comment below. Because that's exactly where I was standing, at the edge of before and after, again. Amara. My name in his voice after 7 years felt like a ghost becoming solid. He stopped just out of reach, his eyes still locked on Mira with an expression I couldn't read. It's been a long time. Yes. My voice came out steadier than I felt. It has. His gaze finally lifted to mine, and I saw the question there. The demand. The slowly building storm of realization that was going to devastate everything. Are you living in London now? For the past 7 years. I kept my answer neutral, factual, even as my heart hammered against my ribs. 7 years. He repeated it slowly, and I watched him doing the math. His eyes dropped back to Mira, who was studying him with that unnervingly direct gaze children have before they learn to be polite. And this is my daughter. Mira. I pulled her slightly closer, that mama bear instinct roaring to life even though the threat was more complicated than simple danger. Mira, say hello to Mr. Park. Hello, Mr. Park. She did that little wave children do, curious despite her earlier fear. Do you know my mama from before I was born? The question hit him like a physical blow. I watched him absorb it, process it, calculate timelines with the sharp intelligence that had built his empire. When his eyes met mine again, they were blazing with barely controlled emotion. Yes, he said quietly, his gaze never leaving mine. From before you were born. Mira, oblivious to the adult undercurrents drowning us, turned back to the display. Mama, can we see the Egyptian section now? You promised. Of course, baby. I was already backing away, gathering her hand, preparing to flee. We should go. Don't. One word, sharp with command and something that might have been desperation. Jean Wu's hand lifted slightly, not touching but stopping me as effectively as a wall. Please. Don't run. Not again. I didn't run. You sent me away. To protect you. His voice dropped, conscious of the public space, his security maintaining a perimeter that gave us privacy in the crowd. There were threats. And I'm sure there still are. Which is exactly why we need to leave. I was already moving, pulling Mira with me, but his next words froze me in place. She's mine, isn't she? The museum seemed to fall away. People moved around us in blurred motion, but in our bubble, there was only silence and truth and the wreckage of 7 years of secrets. Mira looked up at me, confusion and budding understanding mixing on her too young face. Mama. What does he mean? I closed my eyes. When I opened them, Jean Wu was closer, his expression raw with an emotion I'd never seen on him, vulnerability. This man who faced death threats with cold calculation was undone by a 7-year-old girl with his eyes. Can we talk? He asked it quietly, respectfully, without the command I expected. Please. You owe me that much. Did I owe him anything? He'd sent me away. He'd chosen his empire over us, over me, before he even knew there was an us to choose. But looking at Myra's confused face and Jean Wu's desperate one, I realized this moment had been inevitable from the second I decided to keep her. You can't create life with someone and expect it to stay hidden forever. There's a cafe 2 blocks from here, I heard myself say. The one with the green awning. We'll meet you there in 20 minutes. He looked like he wanted to argue, to insist on staying with us, but he nodded. 20 minutes. And Amara. He waited until I met his eyes. Thank you. I watched him leave with his security detail, then looked down at my daughter, who was studying me with those 2 knowing eyes. Mama, is Mr. Park my daddy? Children and their terrible, beautiful, devastating clarity. I knelt down to her level, taking both her hands in mine. Yes, baby. He is. But it's complicated, and scary, and I need you to trust me while we figure this out, okay? She nodded slowly, processing this world-changing information with remarkable calm. Is he a good man? That was the million-dollar question, wasn't it? Was Jean Wu good? He was dangerous, powerful, built an empire on violence and control. But he'd also been gentle with me once, protective, capable of softness I suspected few people ever saw. Good and bad weren't simple categories in his world. He's complicated too, I finally said. Just like everything else. The cafe was small, warm, and mercifully quiet on a Saturday afternoon. Jean Wu had claimed a corner booth, his security stationed strategically around the space in a way that looked casual but was anything but. He stood when we entered, his eyes immediately finding Mira and staying there like she was the most fascinating thing he'd ever seen. She was. I understood that completely. She was a miracle I'd been living with for 7 years, and he was seeing her for the first time with the knowledge that she was his. If this story is hitting differently than you expected, if you're feeling something real right now, let me know with a like. Because we're about to dive into the conversation that changes everything. Thank you for coming. Jean Wu remained standing until we sat, his manners impeccable despite the chaos I could see roiling behind his controlled expression. Can I order you something? Coffee? Tea? Something for Mira. Hot chocolate, Mira said before I could answer, her natural boldness returning now that we were in a safe, public space. With extra marshmallows, please. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Extra marshmallows. I'll make sure they don't forget. He ordered through one of his men with a quiet efficiency that reminded me of his power, then turned his full attention back to us. To her. Mira is a beautiful name. What does it mean? It means, admirable, in Latin, Mira answered, sitting up straighter, proud of the knowledge. and peace in Slavic languages. Mama chose it because she wanted me to be strong and peaceful at the same time. Jinwoo's eyes found mine across the table, and I saw the question there. Did you name her after my mother? Because Mira had indeed been his mother's name, the one person in his family who'd shown him genuine love before the empire consumed everything. I hadn't known that when I chose it. Coincidence or fate, I still wasn't sure. It suits you, he said softly to Mira, then to me, can we talk? Honestly. Mira, sweetheart, can you sit at that table right there? I pointed to 2 feet away, still within sight and reach. Play on the tablet for a few minutes while I talk to Mr. Park. She looked between us, far too perceptive, but nodded. Okay, Mama. But I can still see you, right? Always, baby. I'm right here. Once she was settled with her tablet and the hot chocolate that arrived with a mountain of marshmallows, Jinwoo leaned forward. 7 years. You've kept her hidden from me for 7 years. You sent me away. The anger I'd buried for so long surfaced instantly. You looked at me and said I wasn't safe in your world, that you couldn't protect me, that it was over. What was I supposed to do? Call you from London and say, hey, remember me? The woman you discarded. I'm pregnant with your child. Yes. The word came out fierce, barely controlled. That's exactly what you should have done. So you could what? Send money. Arrange for us to disappear more thoroughly. You made it clear I was a liability, Jinwoo. You think a baby would have made me less of one? He flinched. Actually flinched. I was trying to keep you alive. There were 3 separate contracts on anyone close to me. My enemies were systematically eliminating anyone I cared about. If they'd known about you. They didn't know about me then, and they don't know about her now. I kept my voice low, conscious of Mira just feet away. We've been safe. Anonymous. Exactly what you wanted. What I wanted. His control cracked, emotion bleeding through. What I wanted was you. Safe. Alive. Even if it meant living without you. That was the whole fucking point of sending you away. The raw pain in his voice cut through my anger. I'd spent 7 years painting him as the villain who abandoned me, but looking at him now, I saw the truth was more complicated. He'd sent me away because keeping me would have killed me. In his world, love was a weapon his enemies would use without hesitation. She's 7 years old, I said quietly. 7 years of birthdays, first words, first steps, first days of school. 7 years you missed because we were both too scared to reach out. Tell me. He leaned forward, desperate. Tell me everything. I want to know it all. So I did. Sitting in that corner cafe while our daughter ate marshmallows and played games 3 feet away, I gave Jinwoo the story of Myra's life. How I'd been sick for months during pregnancy, working 2 jobs until I literally couldn't stand. How I'd had her alone in a London hospital with no one's hand to hold but a kind nurse who stayed past her shift. How she'd been tiny but fierce from the first moment, crying with indignation at the world she'd been born into. I told him about her first word, more, of course, demanding from day one. About how she'd walked at 10 months, running by 11, as if she couldn't wait to explore everything. About her obsession with museums and history, her terrifying intelligence that left teachers scrambling to keep up. About how she asked questions that had no easy answers and accepted complex truths with remarkable grace. I told him about the hard times too, the nights I'd cried alone after she finally slept, terrified I was failing her. The times I couldn't afford both food and heat. The moments she'd asked about her father and I'd had to lie by omission, protecting her from a truth I didn't know how to explain. Jinwoo listened to all of it with an intensity that was almost painful to witness. His hands gripped his coffee cup so hard I thought it might shatter. His jaw worked constantly, emotions flickering across his face too fast to catalog. And when I finished, he looked at our daughter with something like reverence and devastation mixed into one. I should have been there. His voice was rough. For all of it. I should have been there. You were protecting us. I was a coward. He said it flatly, without self-pity. I could have found a way. I built an empire from nothing, eliminated threats no one thought I could survive, controlled one of the most dangerous organizations in Asia. But I couldn't figure out how to keep one woman safe. That's not protection. That's failure. The honesty startled me. This wasn't the cold, controlled Jean Wu who'd sent me away. This was someone rawer, more human, more like the man I'd fallen in love with before I understood what he really was. What do you want? I asked directly. Now that you know. What do you want from us? He looked at Mira, then back at me. Everything. I want to know her. Be part of her life. Make up for 7 years of absence. I want, he stopped, jaw clenching. I want what I gave up when I sent you away. But I have no right to ask for any of it. No, I agreed quietly. You don't. But she has the right to know her father. If that's something you really want, if you're prepared for what that means, then we can figure out how. What does it mean? He leaned forward. Tell me the rules. Tell me what I need to do. It means her safety comes first. Always. Before your empire, before your wars, before everything. If introducing you into her life puts her in danger, it doesn't happen. Agreed. It means you don't get to be a part-time father. You can't sweep in when it's convenient and disappear when your empire demands it. She needs stability, not chaos. I can relocate operations. Spend more time in London. Or, he hesitated. You could come back to Seoul. Both of you. I can protect you there better than anywhere. I laughed without humor. Go back to the place that nearly destroyed me. Put Mira in the center of your dangerous world. That's not protection, Jean Wu. That's insanity. My world has changed. I've changed. The threats that existed 7 years ago, most of them are gone now. Eliminated or absorbed. My position is stronger. I can guarantee your safety in ways I couldn't before. You can't guarantee anything in your world. That's the whole problem. We stared at each other across the table, years of unresolved tension and longing and fear mixing into something combustible. He was offering me everything I'd dreamed about during those first lonely years, a life together, a family, security. But he was also asking me to trust the same judgment that had sent me away pregnant and alone. I need time, I finally said. Time to think about what's best for her. Time to figure out if you're really serious about this or if it's just shock and guilt talking. Time to. I am serious. He interrupted with quiet force. This isn't shock. This is the first real thing I've felt in 7 years. I sent you away to keep you alive, and I've been dying slowly ever since. Now I find out I have a daughter, a beautiful, brilliant daughter, and you think this is temporary feeling? This is everything, Amara. Everything I didn't know I'd lost. The passion in his voice called to something deep inside me, the part that had loved him so completely all those years ago. But I was a mother now, and my heart was split between what I wanted and what Mira needed. Mama. Myra's voice interrupted the moment. She'd abandoned her tablet and was standing next to the table, looking between us with that unsettling perceptiveness. Is Mr. Park really my daddy? Jean Wu looked at me, waiting for permission. I nodded slightly, giving him the moment but staying close, protective. He turned to her, and his expression softened in a way I'd never seen. Yes, he said simply. I am. And I'm very sorry I wasn't there before. But if you'll let me, I'd like to be here now. Mira studied him seriously. Do you know how to braid hair? The question was so unexpected, so perfectly childlike, that I almost laughed. Jin-woo looked momentarily panicked. No. But I can learn. Can you help with math homework? Yes. I'm very good at math. Do you like museums? I love museums. Mama says you live in Korea. That's very far away. It is. But I can visit. Or maybe. He glanced at me carefully. Maybe we can figure out a way to be closer. Mira nodded slowly, processing all of this with the seriousness she applied to everything important. Then she looked at me. Mama, can we trust him? Out of the mouths of babes. That was the question, wasn't it? Could we trust Jin-woo? Could we trust that his world wouldn't destroy us? Could we trust that he meant what he said about being part of our lives? I don't know yet, baby, I answered honestly. But we can try to find out. Would you like that? She looked back at Jin-woo, and I saw her make one of those instant child assessments that are often more accurate than adult caution. Okay. But you have to learn to braid hair. That's important. The smile that broke across Jin-woo's face was transformative. For just a second, he wasn't a mafia boss or an empire builder. He was just a man being given a second chance by his daughter. That's a deal. I'll watch every tutorial video I can find. We left the cafe an hour later with tentative plans. Jin-woo would extend his London stay, we'd arrange another meeting, he'd send his contact information. Baby steps towards something that felt both inevitable and terrifying. Mira chattered the whole way home about having a daddy who lived in Korea and promised to learn hair braiding, already weaving him into the story of her life with the adaptability of children. But as I put her to bed that night, she got quiet. Mama. Are you sad? No, baby. Why would I be sad? Because your eyes look sad. Like when you think I'm sleeping but you're looking at old pictures. Too perceptive. Always too perceptive. I smoothed her hair back, so like mine, so like his. Sometimes grown-up feelings are complicated. I'm not sad exactly. Maybe, scared. Hopeful. A lot of things mixed together. Are you scared of him? No. I'm scared of his world. But him? No. She thought about this. I think he seems lonely. Like he's been looking for something for a long time and just found it. My 7-year-old daughter, reading a mafia boss like a book. I pulled her close, breathing in her familiar scent. Maybe he has been. And maybe we have been too. Now we get to figure out what happens next. Together. Together. The next few weeks were surreal. Jin-woo kept his word. He stayed in London, rearranging his empire through video calls and trusted lieutenants, making time for us with a dedication that was almost frightening in its intensity. We started slowly. Park visits where he pushed Mira on swings with the careful concentration of someone defusing a bomb. Museums where he listened to her excited explanations about ancient civilizations with genuine interest. Dinners where he asked about her school and friends and favorite books like he was memorizing her entire existence. I watched him fall in love with our daughter in real time. It was beautiful and painful and complicated, seeing this dangerous man transform into someone gentle when she was around. He learned to braid hair, badly at first, then with improving skill. He helped with math homework, his natural brilliance making him an unexpectedly good teacher. He bought her books about Korean history and culture, building a bridge to a heritage she'd never explored. And slowly, carefully, he rebuilt something with me too. Not the passionate, naive love we'd had before. Something more careful, more aware of costs and consequences. We talked, really talked, about what had happened 7 years ago, about the threats he'd faced and the choices he'd made. I began to understand the impossible position he'd been in, even as I made him understand the impossible position he'd put me in. I looked for you, he admitted one evening after Mira was asleep. We were sitting in my small living room, the space feeling cramped with his presence but somehow more complete. For the first 2 years, I had people searching. Discreetly. I told myself it was just to make sure you were safe, but really. I couldn't let go. You didn't find me. You were very thorough about disappearing. Different name, cash-only existence for a while, no social media. You knew how to vanish. I learned from the best. It wasn't quite a joke. He'd taught me about his world, including how to hide in it. He smiled without humor. I gave up after 2 years. Told myself you'd found a better life, that you were happy, that letting go was the kindest thing I could do. And then I saw her in that museum, and every moment of the last 7 years became a waste. Not a waste. Those years made us who we are now. Maybe we needed them. Maybe. He didn't sound convinced. Or maybe I just wasn't brave enough to fight for you then, and I'm trying to convince myself it was noble instead of cowardly. The honesty was new. The old Jinwoo had been all control and certainty. This version, the one who'd discovered he had a daughter, was more raw. More real. What happens now? I asked the question that had been hovering over us for weeks. You can't stay in London indefinitely. Your empire needs me less than you think. I've been restructuring. Moving into more legitimate businesses, distancing from the operations that create the most danger. It's a slow process, but I started years ago. I was tired of that life even before I found you again. You're trying to go legitimate. As legitimate as someone with my history can be. I'll never be clean, Amara. My past will always follow me. But I can build something safer for the future. For her future. The weight of what he was suggesting hit me. You're really serious about this. About us. I've never been more serious about anything. He moved closer, not touching but near enough that I could feel his warmth. 7 years ago, I sent you away because I couldn't protect you. I've spent every day since becoming powerful enough that I could. Now I am. And I want, he stopped, jaw working. I want my family. If you'll have me. If you'll trust me. If you'll give me the chance I don't deserve but am begging for anyway. If you're still with me at this point, if you're invested in whether this family finds their way back together, consider subscribing. Because this story is about more than just romance. It's about second chances, chosen family, and what we're willing to risk for the people who matter most. I wanted to say yes. Everything in me wanted to fall into his arms and believe in the fairy tale. But I was a mother first, and mothers don't get to choose based on what they want. They choose based on what's safe. I need to think, I said quietly. This isn't just about you and me anymore. It's about Mira, and her safety, and her future. If I say yes, if I let you fully into our lives, I need to know it's the right choice for her. What would make it the right choice? Proof that your world is really different. That the threats are really gone. That bringing you into her life won't paint a target on her back. He nodded slowly. How do I prove that? I don't know. But until I figure it out, we take this slow. You can see her, spend time with her, build that relationship. But we stay here, in London, in our safe life. We don't dive into your world until I'm absolutely certain it won't drown us. It wasn't the answer he wanted. I could see that in the tension of his shoulders, the frustration in his eyes. But he accepted it with more grace than I expected. Okay. Slow. I can do slow. I've waited 7 years. I can wait as long as it takes. But the universe, as I said before, has a dark sense of humor. And fate doesn't care about your plans for taking things slow. It happened on a Tuesday. Ordinary Tuesday, the kind where nothing significant is supposed to occur. I picked Mira up from school like always, holding her hand as we walked toward the bus stop. She was chattering about a science project, something about volcanic reactions, and I was only half listening, thinking about the report I needed to finish for work. I didn't notice the car until it pulled up beside us. Black sedan, tinted windows, anonymous in a way that should have screamed danger but registered as nothing until the door opened. Mrs. Park. The man who stepped out was Korean, well-dressed, his smile polite and completely wrong. Mr. Park sent us to pick up you and the child. For safety reasons. Everything in me went cold. Jin Woo had been adamant about never sending anyone without checking with me first. He'd given me code words, established protocols, built-in safety measures because he knew his world. And this man had none of the markers. I pulled Mira closer. I don't know you. Mr. Park hired our firm last week. There's been a threat. What's the code word? I interrupted, already backing away, pulling out my phone with my free hand. The man's smile didn't falter, but something changed in his eyes. Mrs. Park, please don't make this difficult. We're here to protect. I ran. Grabbed Myra's hand and ran, ducking into the crowded street, using people as cover, heading toward the busy intersection where witnesses and cameras would make us harder to grab quietly. Behind us, I heard shouting, the sound of car doors, footsteps pounding. Mama. Myra's voice was terrified, but she kept pace, her soccer-trained legs pumping fast. What's happening? Run, baby. Just run. I pulled out my phone, hitting Jin Woo's number with shaking hands while we dodged through crowds. He answered on the first ring. Someone just tried to take us, I gasped out. Black sedan, Korean man, claimed you sent him. Where are you? His voice went from casual to lethal in a heartbeat. Heading toward the market district. Jin Woo, he knew about Mira, he called me Mrs. Park. I didn't send anyone. Listen to me carefully. There's a restaurant 2 blocks north of the market, Han's Kitchen. The owner is one of mine. Get there. Now. I'm sending real security to you, but until they arrive, lock yourself in the back office. Password is Starling. Do you understand? Yes. Starling. Han's Kitchen. I'm tracking your phone. 5 minutes, Amara. Hold on for 5 minutes. We burst into Han's Kitchen like refugees, wild-eyed and panting. The owner took one look at us and understood something was wrong. Password, he said simply, already moving toward the back. Starling. He didn't hesitate, ushering us into a small office and locking the heavy door behind us. Mr. Park's people. On their way. He nodded, moving to stand guard outside, and I finally had a moment to breathe. To pull Mira into my arms and feel her shaking against me. Mama, I'm scared. Her voice was so small, so young, nothing like her usual confidence. I know, baby. Me too. But we're safe now. Mr. Park is sending help. Those men wanted to take me. She pulled back to look at me, and I saw understanding dawning in her eyes. Adult, terrible understanding. Because I'm his daughter. This was the moment I'd feared. The moment when Jin Woo's world crashed into ours with violence instead of just history. Yes. But they didn't succeed. And they won't. Is this why he sent you away before? When you were pregnant with me? Too smart. Always too smart. Yes. She processed this quietly for a moment, then, he was trying to protect us then. Is he protecting us now? Yes. Then I'm glad he found us. Because I don't think we could run from this alone. The wisdom of it broke something in me. She was right. I'd spent 7 years trying to keep us safe through anonymity, but the moment Jin Woo found us, that safety became an illusion. His enemies would find us now. The only question was whether we faced them alone or with his protection. Jin Woo's security arrived in 3 minutes, not 5. For men who moved with lethal efficiency, securing the restaurant, checking exits, treating us like precious cargo. They escorted us to a different car, armored, I realized, and drove us not to my flat but to a hotel. Penthouse suite. Secure floor. Guards stationed at every entrance. Jin Woo was waiting when we arrived. He crossed the room in 3 strides, pulling both of us into his arms with a force that spoke of terror barely contained. For a long moment, he just held us, his heart hammering against my ear, his breath unsteady. When he finally pulled back, his eyes were blazing. "Tell me everything." I did. Every detail, every word, every instinct that had screamed wrong. He listened with that terrible stillness that meant violence was being calculated and planned. When I finished, he made a phone call in rapid Korean, his voice cold as winter death. Then he turned back to us, and his expression shifted. "I'm sorry. This is exactly what I tried to prevent 7 years ago. And now we handle it together," I interrupted. "Because running didn't work, and hiding didn't work, and pretending we could keep her separate from your world clearly didn't work." He looked at me carefully. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying you were right. You can protect us better than I can. And if your enemies know about us now, then staying apart just makes us vulnerable without giving us the benefit of your security." I took a shaky breath. "I'm saying we come to Seoul. We accept your protection. We face this as a family instead of me pretending we're not one. Amara." "But," I continued firmly, "you make changes. Real changes. Whatever restructuring you've been doing, you accelerate it. You get out of the dangerous businesses, you eliminate the threats, you build something legitimate that Mira can be proud of. Because I won't raise our daughter in the center of a war zone. If we're doing this, you're becoming the man you should have been 7 years ago." He looked at me for a long moment, then at Mira, who was watching us both with those 2 old eyes. "Done. I'll burn my entire empire to the ground if that's what it takes to keep you safe. I don't want you to burn it. I want you to transform it. There's a difference." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "You always were the smarter one." The next few hours were a blur of arrangements and decisions. Jin Woo had people collecting our belongings from the flat, arranging travel, coordinating security. His world moved with terrifying efficiency when given a direct order. By midnight, we were on a private plane to Seoul, leaving London and our small safe life behind. Mira slept against my shoulder somewhere over Russia, exhausted by terror and adrenaline. Jin Woo watched her with an expression I couldn't quite read, wonder and regret and fierce protectiveness all mixed together. "I'll keep you safe," he said quietly, not looking away from her sleeping face. "Both of you. Whatever it costs." I know. And I did. This man had sent me away to protect me once. Now he'd move heaven and earth to keep us close. But Jin Woo, you need to understand something. We're not your possessions to guard. We're your family to partner with. There's a difference. His eyes finally met mine. Teach me the difference. I don't know how to be a father or a partner. I only know how to be a boss. Then learn. Because Mira deserves better than a boss. She deserves a dad. And you? His voice dropped. What do you deserve? I thought about that question for a long time, watching cities pass below us in the darkness. What did I deserve? Love? Partnership? Safety? All of it seemed both too much and too little to ask. A choice, I finally said. 7 years ago, you made the choice for both of us. This time, I want to choose. Together. Whatever we build in Seoul, it's built on mutual decisions, not you deciding what's best for me. I can live with that. He reached across the small space between our seats, his hand palm up, offering. Equal partners. In protection, in parenting, in everything. I took his hand, and it felt like stepping off a cliff. Terrifying and inevitable and somehow right. Equal partners. Seoul was everything I remembered and nothing like it. Jinwoo's penthouse had been upgraded, not just luxury now, but fortress-level security disguised as high-end living. Guards stationed discreetly, bulletproof glass, panic rooms, technology that monitored every entrance and exit. It should have felt like a prison. Instead, watching Mira explore her new room, 3 times the size of her old one, with a view of the city and decorations that showed Jinwoo had been paying attention to every detail I'd shared about her interests, it felt like possibility. "Mama, look." She pointed at a wall of books, every title I'd mentioned she loved or wanted to read. He remembered. He'd done more than remember. He'd built her a space that said you matter, you're wanted, you're home. And despite all my reservations and fears, that gesture meant something. Jinwoo appeared in the doorway, watching her excited exploration with undisguised emotion. "Is it okay?" I tried to imagine what a 7-year-old girl would like, but I'm not sure. "It's perfect," Mira interrupted, throwing herself at him with the impulsive affection of children who've decided someone is safe. "Thank you, Daddy." The words stopped him cold. She'd never called him that before, always Mr. Park or Jinwoo when she felt bold. But Daddy was different. Daddy meant acceptance, meant family, meant he'd earned the title. His arms came around her slowly, carefully, like he was afraid she'd break or disappear. "You're welcome, little one." His voice was rough. "You're so welcome." Watching them, I felt the last of my resistance crumble. This was right. Dangerous, complicated, terrifying, but right. We were supposed to be here, the 3 of us, building something new from the wreckage of the past. The next few months were an education in Jinwoo's world. Not the violent, dark parts, he was careful to shield us from that, but the complicated reality of his empire. I met his lieutenants, his business partners, the people who made his operation run. I saw the legitimate businesses he was building, the investments and acquisitions that were slowly replacing the criminal enterprises. I also saw the threats. The enemies who didn't want him to go legitimate because it upset the power balance. The rivals who saw his family as weakness to exploit. The old guard members of his organization who resented the changes he was making. Jinwoo handled all of it with ruthless efficiency, but I watched the toll it took. He was fighting a war on multiple fronts, protecting us, transforming his empire, eliminating threats. Some nights he came home with blood on his knuckles. Other nights he didn't come home at all. "This isn't sustainable," I told him one evening after Mira was asleep. We were in his office, city lights glittering below, the weight of his choices heavy in the air. "You can't keep fighting like this. Eventually, something will break." "I know." He looked exhausted, older than his years. "I'm trying to consolidate power, eliminate the threats, create something stable. But it takes time." "How much time?" "I don't know. A year? Maybe 2. Long enough that I worry every day it's too long." I moved to stand beside him at the window, our shoulders touching. "Then let me help." He looked at me sharply. "You're not getting involved in this." "I'm already involved. The moment you acknowledged Mira, the moment we came to Seoul, I became part of your world. So stop trying to protect me from it and let me actually participate." "Doing what?" "I don't know yet. But I'm smart, I'm capable, and I understand how to navigate complex systems. There has to be something I can do that isn't just sitting in this penthouse waiting for you to come home bloody." He considered this for a long moment. "You're serious?" "Completely." "Then I have an idea. But you're not going to like it." He was right. I didn't like it. His idea involved me taking a public role in his legitimate businesses, becoming the face of his transformation, showing the world that he was building something different. It would make me visible, recognizable, potentially more of a target. It would also make me powerful in my own right. A partner, not a possession. Someone with agency and influence, not just someone to be protected. I'll do it, I said after thinking it through. But on one condition. Mira stays completely out of the public eye. No photos, no mentions, no acknowledgement. She gets to be a normal kid as much as possible. Agreed. Her safety is non-negotiable. We shook on it like business partners, and something shifted between us. This wasn't the passionate, naive love of 7 years ago. This was something more complex, a partnership built on mutual respect, shared goals, and the fierce determination to protect our daughter while building something better. 6 months into our new life in Seoul, the first real test came. One of Jin-woo's rivals made a move, not against him directly, but against one of the legitimate businesses I'd been helping to establish. A charity foundation focused on helping children from troubled backgrounds, something meaningful that could actually do good. They leaked false information suggesting the foundation was a money laundering front. The scandal hit the news, my face plastered across every broadcast as the naive foreign woman being used by a mafia boss to clean dirty money. I wanted to hide. Every instinct screamed to retreat back to anonymity, to protect myself and Mira from the exposure. But Jin-woo sat me down and looked me in the eyes. "This is the moment that matters," he said quietly. "This is when you decide if you're really in this or if you're going to let them push you out. I will support whatever choice you make. But know that if you fight back, if you stand your ground, you change the narrative. You become someone they have to respect, not just a vulnerability to exploit. And if I fail, if I make it worse, then we handle it together. But Amara, you don't fail. It's not in your nature." So I fought back. I called a press conference, stood in front of cameras with Jin-woo beside me, and told the truth. Yes, I was with Jin-woo. Yes, I knew his history. And yes, we were building something legitimate that would help children have better opportunities than either of us had. I invited complete transparency, independent audits, open books, full investigation. You can believe the rumors spread by people who profit from keeping the status quo, I said, looking directly into the cameras, or you can watch what we actually do. Judge us by our actions, not by speculation. The scandal didn't disappear overnight. But slowly, as the audits came back clean and the foundation's work became visible, the narrative shifted. I became not a naive victim but a partner in transformation. Someone to be taken seriously. And Jin-woo's rivals learned that attacking me wasn't as easy as they'd thought. That night, after the press conference, after Mira was asleep, Jin-woo found me on the balcony. "You were incredible today." I was terrified. "You were both." That's what made it incredible. He moved to stand beside me, close enough that I could feel his warmth. "I've been thinking about something." "What?" 7 years ago, I sent you away because I was afraid of losing you. Today, you stood in front of the world and claimed a place in my life despite every reason to run. That's... He stopped, struggling with words. "That's the bravest thing I've ever seen." I had a good example. I turned to look at him. "You're facing down your entire organization to build something better. That takes courage too." "I'm doing it for her." "For Mira." "No." I shook my head. "You're doing it for you too. Because you're tired of being the villain in your own story. You want to be someone your daughter can be proud of." He didn't deny it. "Is it working?" "Ask her. She talks about you constantly. My daddy is building hospitals. My daddy is helping kids go to school. My daddy used to be scary but now he's just protective." I smiled. You're already her hero. And you? His voice dropped. Am I anything to you besides Myra's father? It was the question that had been hovering between us for months. We'd been building a partnership, a family, a life. But the romantic piece, the us of it all, had been carefully set aside while we dealt with more immediate concerns. You're the man who sent me away to keep me safe, I said slowly. The man who spent 7 years becoming strong enough to protect me. The man who's tearing down his empire to build something better. The man who learned to braid hair and helps with homework and reads bedtime stories with the same intensity he brings to business negotiations. I took a breath. You're everything you were 7 years ago and everything you've become since. And yes, you're definitely something to me. Something. He moved closer, his hand coming up to cup my face. That's extremely vague. I'm working up to it. Give me a minute. Take your time. I've got nothing but time now. His thumb brushed my cheek, and the touch sent shivers through me. I've been patient for months. I can wait for you to find the words. You're the love of my life, I finally said, the truth spilling out. You were 7 years ago, and you are now, and you probably will be until I die. Which is terrifying, because loving you is dangerous and complicated and nothing like the safe life I tried to build. But it's true. The kiss was inevitable, years of tension and longing and denied want finally crashing together. His hands tangled in my hair, my arms wrapped around his neck, and for just a moment, we weren't a mafia boss and a mother and 2 people carrying impossible responsibilities. We were just us, the way we'd been before the world got complicated. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine. Marry me. What? Marry me. Not because of Mira, though I want that for her too. But because I want you as my partner in every sense. Because 7 years ago I made the worst mistake of my life, and I want to spend the rest of my life making it right. Because I love you, and I want everyone to know it. I should have said yes immediately. It was everything I'd dreamed about. But I was also a mother, and mothers think about practical things. Your world is still dangerous. The threats aren't all gone. They never will be completely. But they're manageable now. And they'll be even more manageable with you beside me as my wife, not just my partner. Mira will be thrilled. She's been asking when I'm going to give her my last name officially. I laughed through sudden tears. She has. Constantly. She wants to be Mira Park, not Mira Johnson. She wants the world to know we're a family. Then yes. The word came out shakier than I intended. Yes, I'll marry you. But Jinwoo? No big mafia wedding. Something small. Just us and Mira and the people who matter. Whatever you want. As long as you're mine. Equal partners, remember? Not possession. He smiled, that rare, genuine smile that transformed his face. Equal partners who happen to be crazy about each other and raising the most incredible daughter in the world. That works. We got married 3 months later in a small ceremony at the penthouse, with Mira as our flower girl and Jinwoo's most trusted people as witnesses. It wasn't the fairy tale wedding little girls dream about, but it was perfect, real and earned and ours. Mira cried happy tears when Jinwoo officially adopted her afterward, giving her his name legally. Now I'm really your daughter, she said, hugging him tight. You've always been my daughter, he replied, his voice thick with emotion. Now the paperwork just agrees. The years that followed weren't easy. Jinwoo continued his transformation of the organization, making enemies and allies in equal measure. There were threats, close calls, nights when we huddled in safe rooms while security handled situations. But there were also graduations and birthdays and family vacations. Museum trips where Mira lectured us both on ancient history. School plays where Jinwoo sat in the audience looking simultaneously fierce and proud. Quiet evenings where we were just a family, normal and mundane and precious. By Myra's 15th birthday, Jinwoo had successfully transitioned most of his operations to legitimate businesses. He still had enemies, you don't just erase that kind of history. But the danger had decreased from imminent to occasional. We could breathe. We could plan for the future without constantly looking over our shoulders. You did it, I told him one evening, watching Mira at her birthday party, surrounded by friends and laughter. You built something different. We did it, he corrected, pulling me close. I couldn't have done any of this without you. Without her. You gave me a reason to be better. You gave yourself that reason. We just reminded you it existed. He kissed my temple, and we stood there watching our daughter, brilliant, confident, loved. She'd grown up in a world that was sometimes dangerous but always filled with fierce protection and unconditional love. She knew her father's past and chose to focus on his present. She saw the complexity of our lives and handled it with remarkable grace. Mama. Dad. She called us over, using both titles naturally now. Come take a picture with me. We joined her, Jinwoo's arm around both of us, and smiled for the camera. Just a family. Normal on the surface, extraordinary underneath. Built from secrets and second chances, from danger and determination, from love that refused to stay buried. Later that night, after the guests had left and Mira was asleep, Jinwoo and I stood on the balcony where he'd proposed years before. Do you ever regret it? He asked quietly. Coming back to Seoul. Letting me into your life again. I thought about the question seriously. There had been hard times, moments of fear and doubt and near misses that still woke me up at night. But there had also been joy and partnership and the profound satisfaction of building something meaningful against impossible odds. No, I said honestly. I regret the 7 years we lost. I regret the danger. But I don't regret choosing you. Choosing us. Because look what we built from the wreckage. A family. A life. A future that neither of us could have created alone. He pulled me closer, and we stood there looking out at Seoul's glittering lights, two people who'd found their way back to each other against all odds. The Mafia boss who'd learned to braid hair and be a father. The woman who'd rebuilt her life alone and then chosen to share it. The daughter who was the bridge between them, the proof that love could survive separation and secrets and danger. To second chances, Jinwoo said quietly. To choosing love even when it's complicated. To family. To us. And in the quiet of that Seoul night, with our daughter sleeping safely down the hall and years of struggle behind us, we held each other and believed in the future we were still building, one day, one choice, one brave moment at a time.